My German but English speaking favorites with you. So first we have the 𝔖𝔭𝔬𝔢𝔨𝔬𝔢𝔨𝔬𝔢𝔨. They do very informative content on TikTok, now also on YouTube, about mythology, about folklore, about folk witchcraft and traditions, mainly in the north of Germany. Highly recommend. I think the person running it also studies something related to that. So who will I tag in this video to answer these wonderful questions? I would be really interested in hearing this from the wonderful witch of Wanderlust, because she has been creating on this platform for quite a while. And then also my German lovelies, the Norse witch, the 𝔖𝔭𝔬𝔢𝔨𝔬𝔢𝔨 and Ella Harrison.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today I'll be doing the My Magical YouTube Journey tag, which I was tagged in by the Witch's Cookery. So I'll be talking about what it is like being a witchy online content creator and sharing my perspective, and we're going to get a bit more personal today. Shocking, I know, this is also new territory for me. We have a lot of questions to go through, so let's just jump right into it. Question number 1. How long have you been on YouTube as a content creator? Almost a year actually, which is kind of fitting that I'm doing this tag now, because I now have about a year of stuff to look back on. I uploaded my first video on the 12th of September of last year, 2022. Question 2 is, what is your channel name and what is the significance behind it? And this is really the age-old question of my content everywhere. This one strand of hair really is on my nerve today. Anyway, so yes, I've answered this question multiple times and on multiple different platforms, and time again people ask me what my name even means, which I guess is understandable. I already had kind of a feeling when I picked this name that the 𝔖𝔭𝔬𝔢𝔨𝔬𝔢𝔨 would raise a lot of eyebrows. I'm not going to go in depth into this yet again. I already have a video about that explaining the entire thing in much more detail, but just to quickly summarize it, 𝔖𝔭𝔬𝔢𝔨𝔬𝔢𝔨 is a term in Low Saxon, which is a minority language which is spoken throughout northern Germany, southern Denmark and the eastern Netherlands. The term 𝔖𝔭𝔬𝔢𝔨𝔬𝔢𝔨 in this language specifically denounces a folk magic practitioner, or generally a practitioner of magic. Question number 3, what inspired you to start your channel? Well, technically I already had started TikTok maybe a year or a year and a half before I started YouTube. And the thing on TikTok is that you can make a lot of content and get a lot of views with it, but you are restricted in how long your videos can be. So over time I just got really fed up with that and wanted to go into depth into more topics, and then I just decided to do YouTube instead. Question number 4, what type of content do you create on your channel? I create content about witchcraft, shocker, but specifically I create content about German folk magic. So this is a niche within a niche within a niche, basically. You could go even further and say that I create content specifically about Northwestern German folk magic, which is even more niche, but I guess that's how hyperfixations go. You just go deeper and deeper and deeper. So we have people interested in witchcraft, which is like these much people, and then we have people who are interested in folk magic specifically, and these are like this many people, and then you have people interested in German folk magic specifically, and you have like these many people, and then people who are interested in northern or northwestern German folk magic, and you end up with like this much. But this is the group that I specifically make content for. Because if you have this hyperfixation, you really don't have many places to go, and I decided to become that place. Next question, is there any style of content you'd like to try? I always wanted to kind of try doing vlogs. I also, at the beginning of this year, I started to film a vlog, but I kind of stopped halfway through because it turns out I don't really do many interesting things. A vlog about my life would basically just be me sitting at my desk, being on my laptop, doing a bunch of research, and then throughout the day moving myself to the sofa and doing a bunch of reading there, and then going to bed. So not really that interesting. Hi, hello. So this video might not ever make it up, but I've been thinking on my channel I'm like very unpersonal. I'm just mostly like giving you guys some like small lectures, pieces of information, and this is what you're mainly here for, but I keep getting questions on like me as a person, like what are my interests, maybe even outside of witchcraft and folk magic and stuff like that. So I thought I'd just try to film a bit of my like day-to-day regular life and what I'm up to, so we can get to know each other a bit better. Right now it's the 6th of March, I think. And judging by how little eventful stuff happens in my life that I might try to film, I'm guessing this vlog won't go up until like maybe July or something. Maybe I manage to make it earlier, we'll see. So for this month I have like two main objectives, and these are the research papers that I have to write for my university. And they're both in social and cultural anthropology. Some of you might be confused. I study both social and cultural anthropology and archaeology in university. It's a weird German system where you kind of make a bachelor with like 2 degrees. I'm not going to get into that. So 2 research papers in social and cultural anthropology. And we were like free to choose our topics, but they must be oriented on the course that we actually write them in. And for one course, I'm writing a research paper comparing different explanatory systems for witchcraft in Europe and Africa. And you would think that there's like a lot of resources on this topic, especially in the field of like comparative anthropology, but funny enough, like in the 1970s, this kind of like dwindled off, and researchers mostly tried to analyze the witchcraft practices solely based on the culture from which they sprung, which ignores kind of a larger societal context in which they exist in. And this is kind of the basic thesis that I'm trying to form my paper around. So for this paper, I'm reading a few other articles. Currently, I'm finishing my read on historiographical reviews, anthropological and historical approaches to witchcraft, potential for a new collaboration, ? I would argue, as the person that wrote this research paper, yes, there is. So I don't think this is a good angle. I don't know how the sound quality will be. If you can see that, the snow is slowly melting, which is nice, but spring in northwestern Germany is generally like, well, when the snow melts, new one will just come at it immediately after, so that's that. Also, when there's snow in March and the sun is already like this high, it can kind of like burn in your face because everything kind of reflects. But this is the most sun we'll be getting for many weeks to come, so you'll just gotta make do with what you have and like experience as much sun as you possibly can. What are hobbies outside of your channel? Well, I kind of combine all of my interests and hobbies into what I do online. I am really interested in witchcraft and folk magic and history and archaeology and culture, and I also like sketching and being creative, and these things all kind of are combined within what I do. I guess one hobby of mine that would be most outside of my box that I have chosen for me on the internet would be that I do some sketching and painting and drawing in my witchcraft grimoires. So again, it's still connected to my general interests. But outside of that, I don't think I have any hobbies that you wouldn't be aware of through watching my content. So there are no surprises here. How do you plan out your content? Generally, I don't really. I often put out polls on my Patreon, and then my patrons get to vote on a topic that they'd like to see me cover in a video or in a blog post. And usually at the time when I put out that poll with these suggestions, I already have a rough idea of each of these topics, and after that I'm just delving more into that and researching even more into that and going more into depth. I thought about making scripts for my videos before because I stutter a lot and there are many ums and ahs in between every sentence that I say basically. And usually I record about 40 minutes of raw footage, and with editing out all awkward pauses and ums and ahs, my videos end up being like 20 minutes or so. So a script would really help with that. But the thing is, if I had a script, I would constantly be looking like, this way or that way, wherever my laptop is, and then it wouldn't be as engaging, I feel like. So I have some bullet points like I do now here on my laptop, but I talk freely most of the time. Okay, next question. What are the tools of your trade? I film all of my content on my phone. I thought about buying a more expensive camera, but my phone is like sufficient, I feel like. I mean, I can film HD on here and the sound is also not that bad. And my phone, if you're curious, is a Samsung 10 Lite, which is like an unusually long phone, but I've come to quite like it. And that phone is mounted on a tripod, which is the C6i carbon tripod from 𝔬𝔬𝔢𝔨. And the phone and the tripod are connected through a phone holder from Manfrotto. And I wish I could give you more insight into all of these tools, but basically I just walked into the store and said, I'd like to film videos. What do I need? What do you recommend? And then I just bought what they gave me. Also, I edit all of my videos on DaVinci Resolve, which is a free editing program that you can download. And at first, this was the biggest fear factor for me when getting into YouTube, because I was afraid that I would be completely overwhelmed with that editing program, which was the case at first. But over time, I've come to learn the stuff that I need to do to make my videos semi-watchable. There's still a lot of stuff on that program of which I have no clue how that works or what it does, but I've come to manage ProResolve quite okay, I'd say. As a content creator, do you experience burnout? I mean, I guess so, sometimes, but generally I don't have the feeling that I completely have to stop making content. I mean, my uploading schedule is very inconsistent, I know that, so I think these big gaps in between me making videos kind of helps me with not getting burnt out, but we'll see what the future brings. I mean, I make more content now, even though on YouTube you might not realize it, but I try to keep up as best I can with Patreon and putting up stuff on Instagram. And maybe with that on top, I'll get burnout eventually, but until that time comes, I think I'm good. Which video are you most proud of and why? I think the video that I did with the Polish folk witch a couple of weeks ago, where I got to interview her, was really one of my favorite videos that I've ever done. The thing that was quite embarrassing is that when we sat down to film our conversation, the camera on my laptop suddenly decided to stop working and Joanna couldn't see me while she was talking to me. That was quite an embarrassment, since it was the first time we got together to actually talk face-to-face, or it was supposed to be face-to-face. But I filmed my part of the conversation with my phone and then linked up the audio file with my video on my phone, in my editing program, and made it look okay, I guess. I also had to film vertically to fit myself on there. It was a whole ordeal, but the conversation itself was really interesting to me. And it felt like I could have talked hours to her, because we have the same specific niche interest in Silesian folk magic. And it was so interesting to talk to someone who lives in Silesia today. I don't know how to describe it really, but it felt like we each had a puzzle piece of something, and in that conversation we kind of got to connect these two pieces, and I'd love to talk more to her. But also besides that, I think all videos where I give book recommendations for German folk magic or Germanic paganism I really enjoy, because again, I'm a giant nerd. And also on last month's Patreon exclusive video, I talked about my relationship to Low Saxon and how language for me is intimately tied to my witchcraft practice and to my identity, and I really like that and how that turned out. Who inspires you within the magical pagan YouTube community? I'd say The Witch's Cookery, definitely. I mean, all of her videos are so aesthetic, and there's always a lot going on and a bunch of B-roll, and you can really see how much energy she puts into making her videos look good. When you make content yourself and edit videos yourself, you start to see the immense amount of work that goes into everything. So lots of respect to her. Also, similarly, for the same reasons, lots of respect to Ella Harrison and The Norse Witch, which also make lots of content on many social media sites and have really in-depth YouTube videos that are also aesthetic to look at. And let's be honest, when it comes to aesthetics, my videos are kind of lacking generally. I mean, it's just mostly me talking to you. I'm trying to make my videos a bit more aesthetic eventually, but we'll get there. But until we get there, these three are kind of my role models, I guess. And they are what I aspire to become eventually with my videos. Maybe I'll never get there, maybe I will, but hopefully you'll stick around to find out. Also, the next question, are there any channels that you would recommend? These three, again, obviously. I can also recommend Chaotic Witch Aunt, which is also one of my big inspirations, I think. And Frankie, aka Chaotic Witch Aunt, even knows me now, and they follow me, which is insane. I think I've mentioned that before, but I'm still quite in shock about that. Basically, whenever a witchy content creator that I look up to starts noticing me or following me, I get very overwhelmed and have to sit down for a second because, like, oh my god, why do you even notice me? Next question, do you believe there are misconceptions about being a magical practitioner on YouTube? I guess so. One of the misconceptions that I don't see many talk about is that witchy online creators don't know everything. I mean, like, yeah, no shit, no one knows everything, but specifically to witchcraft and even specifically to their specific niche that they make content in, they don't know everything. I don't know everything about German folk magic, and even stuff that I've talked about previously, I don't always have on the forefront of my mind. Like, even sometimes I still have to go to my grimoires where I wrote stuff down, or have to rewatch some of my videos or reread some of my blog posts on Patreon to kind of refresh my memory. I'm not this like super computer when it comes to German folk magic, and I don't think that any practitioner is when it comes to their practice. And also on the topic of personal practices, we don't really have that aesthetic of in practice, generally speaking. And I am not as vigorous as some might assume. If you see my content, you might think that day in, day out, all I do is practice German folk magic, but generally I don't really. I focus on more minor things that I do from time to time. If you knew me and like did not know that I was a full practitioner and did not know about all of my witchy stuff and did not see my altar and stuff, you wouldn't even guess that I'm a witch, I think. So I guess we're all a bit more relaxed and less vigorous than might meets the eye. What do you like and dislike about being on YouTube? I like making long-form content and I like connecting to the people in my comment section. I don't necessarily like the YouTube algorithm because it is really kind of here or there when it comes to bringing my videos to my subscribers. Like, with my irregular uploading schedule, I see that when I don't post for a couple of weeks, the next video will only get a fraction of the views that it got before. And I'm not necessarily mad that I don't get many views. I'm more mad that the people who decided to subscribe to me don't get my videos in their subscription box or in their recommended videos. What are some of the challenges and struggles you face creating on this platform, and how do you overcome them? Well, as I said, keeping a regular uploading schedule. I think maybe half a year ago or so I tried to upload a video every single week, and I quickly realized that that wasn't really doable for me, and since then I've given up on being a regular uploader. Also, when I make a video, it will be on Patreon a week prior to it coming on YouTube, so there's an even longer gap between videos on YouTube which are accessible to the general public. My schedule is kind of all over the place, and how do I overcome it? I don't. Generally, I don't really, and I think it'll stay that way for quite some time in the future. What is your opinion on monetization, paywalls, and exclusive content? I think that it is an absolute lifeline for basically all witchy creators that I know. You can really pay your bills in this niche of the internet, and even if you were to technically make a lot of money on YouTube, that income is so unstable because of the temperament of the YouTube algorithm, which I mentioned before. So you can't really bet on that unless you have like a ginormous fan base, which generally we don't. So exclusive content, while also not being very stable, is at least more stable than anything you would be able to get from social media. For example, I'm monetized on TikTok, which means I technically made money off of my TikToks. But with thousands of views and multiple videos, I only made about like €1.50 with TikTok over the course of several months. And on Patreon, which I started maybe 3 months ago, I already made about like a bit over €200, I think. So for me, Patreon is really important, and it is even more important for other creators who depend on it for their livelihood. I mean, I'm lucky. For me, all of this is more of a side hustle and not really my job, and I don't have to finance my entire life out of this. But for the people who do, getting help from their audience through this way by offering exclusive content is absolutely necessary, I feel like. And I think if you have a creator that you really like and there's some way of supporting them by Patreon or just a one-time donation, you should really consider helping out. Do you have any boundaries on this platform? Why or why not? Well, I try to keep my personal life outside of witchcraft mostly private. I don't really talk about where exactly I live, where exactly I hang out, and what I do outside of this. I don't show IRL friends or IRL family. I don't show pictures of my ancestors, which is why they're always turned around when I show my altar. And these are just some things that I decided to keep private, not just necessarily because I think that some people might take advantage of that somehow, but also because I don't want to breach anyone's privacy who's in my personal life, also because I don't think it is that relevant to show. Do you have any current goals for your channel? Well, reaching 1,000 subscribers would be nice, and also I'd like to try to experiment a bit more with my content. I already talked about wanting to do vlogs and trying that out, so that would be an area of interest, but I want to try to make my videos a bit more dynamic, which is going to cost a lot more energy and time, and I'm not quite sure if I'm ready for that yet, because I do go to university and that takes priority in my life, and I can't just put all of my energy into making content. What are some mistakes that you made and how did you fix them? I don't think that I've made straight up mistakes yet. Most of the stuff that I'm not really happy about had to do with some weird editing glitches that I did not really have much control over. For example, if you go back to some of my earlier videos where I still had the old intro, there was this weird audio glitch where the intro music would cut in way later than it was supposed to be, and I couldn't fix that through the editing program somehow, but now some update fixed that, which I'm very happy about. But other than that, I think I've done quite well given the circumstances of me not having really much knowledge with editing or making videos or any of that sort. In what ways has your channel grown since your first video? Well, I keep getting comments of people which say that they've discovered me through my YouTube channel, which is really cool to me because when I started, almost everyone that was following me knew me through TikTok because that was my primary platform at the time. But now I feel like if you know me through YouTube, that almost means a bit more to me. I don't know, not to bash anyone who knew me through TikTok, but YouTube is a bit more of my passion project, I feel like. So it kind of means a lot to me when people tell me that they know me through here. Have you ever wanted to quit making videos and why? No, not really, at least on YouTube. If you go on my TikTok nowadays, you'll see that my last video was like months and months ago, so technically I think I've quitted TikTok, but I'm not quite sure yet. I mean, I'd like to make more TikTok videos, but I just don't know what topics I'll cover. And when you stop making content for a platform for a long time, it becomes like very awkward re-entering into that. And I also think that now also making content for TikTok again would spread me a bit too thin. And I initially stopped making content on there because I just didn't like the way the app was going. I didn't like the way it made me feel. And the TikTok algorithm was kind of screwing me over. So I said, well, screw you back, I'm gonna go. Maybe something like that will one day happen on YouTube as well. I don't know, but that was definitely one of the reasons why I stopped making videos for TikTok. What did you wish you had known before starting your YouTube journey? If I could talk to myself before I started a channel, I would say start way earlier than you want to. I really kind of procrastinated making a YouTube channel because I was fearful that I was going to be so horrible at editing and it was going to be so awkward. But when I started, it really was none of that. I mean, I already was comfortable in front of the camera from TikTok, but other than that, the editing program isn't really that vicious as I thought it would be. Buying special equipment, even though it might be expensive for holding a camera or for holding my phone, was really worth it. And I just wish that I had known all of these things before, so I would have started way earlier. Do you post on any other platforms? Yes, I do. As I said, I used to post on TikTok. Eventually I might post on TikTok again. But I think my main platform right now would be Patreon, where I post many in-depth blog posts and exclusive video and early videos and some other hijinks generally. And since this is the platform where I get paid for, this takes like precedent over anything else, and this is where most of my energy flows into. Other than that, when it comes to social media, I also post my content mainly on Instagram, and this is where I keep up with most of you guys, generally speaking. And if you're ever wondering what I'm up to, you'll most definitely find that out on Instagram. And I'd say outside of Patreon and YouTube, this is like my other main social media platform. I also used to be active on Twitter before the Musk apocalypse happened and everything kind of went down the drain. I know I'm barely active on there anymore. I mostly linger around, but there's been like this exodus that happened in the witchy community, at least from the people that I follow, that migrate away from Twitter and also migrate away from TikTok. And somehow I feel like, without even talking about it, collectively, we as witchy online creators all started to move closer to Patreon and Instagram and YouTube and away from other social media platforms. Do you have any advice for anyone starting a YouTube channel? Basically, just go for it. I would give you the same advice that I would give my younger self, to just don't procrastinate. It's not that difficult and not that hard as it may seem, and you'll get better with time. And yes, it will be awkward, but if you just push through that, you'll see that it will be worth it. And the last question, who will you tag in this video? Not really anyone, because everyone that I would have tagged with this already got tagged by the Witch's Cookery, so I guess I'll tag anyone who wants to participate. I recommend also watching other videos with this tag, especially by those people who the Witch's Cookery tagged. So this was all I wanted to talk about, and now we come to the Patreon shoutouts. So shout out to 𝔖𝔬 𝔖𝔨𝔶𝔨𝔫𝔨𝔶, shout out to 𝔖𝔨 and Rini, shout out to 𝔇𝔢 and 𝔖𝔨𝔫𝔨𝔀𝔢𝔫, shout out to 𝐻exenheim, and shout out to Megan and Willow Rose Witch. And with that, I wish you a great rest of your day, and 𝔖𝔨 𝔖𝔨𝔬𝔢𝔨𝔨.